and welcome to episode 35 of I'm Fine, a chat between myself, Damo, and a man that has been down his fair share of chimneys in his time and found himself explaining why he's in someone's front room uninvited. Sorry, your face. I don't have a second one. If you don't like that one, I can't.
I like your reaction to it. I think it's a pile of shit. Your laughing's quite amusing, so keep it in.
Oh. A chat around the subjects of health, wealth, well-being, fitness, but still making me laugh. Sport and all the difficult things and the uncomfortable things. I think we talk about those, don't we?
Yeah.
We're all work in progress. We're all work in progress, and this podcast is no exception. In short, it's a poke at our perfectly imperfect lives. You've probably got a story about that, haven't you? And if we can make just one person feel like they're not alone in all this madness, then our work here is done.
I'm desperately thinking I haven't. I've got nothing to offer
Really?
on chimneys. Not a thing.
Just made me sound like, there's something I didn't do in the last one I need to come back to. If you haven't already subscribed to us in your favourite podcasting app, then please do so. And if you have a spare moment, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast. And like we said before, make Mark's Christmas wish come true.
Paint some links. Yeah.
By sending this podcast link to just 2 of your friends. Because that'll literally double our listenership.
It'd be like the R rate, won't it?
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, if we can just follow the
Compound
R rate.
interest. Yeah. You just tell 2 people, they infect another 2.
Coming up, this is our Christmas episode. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out,
good.
It is celebrating the birth of baby Jesus.
I hope it'd be lovely. I'm just going to watch our figures on Christmas Day to think that.
Do you know what?
This is like the Queen's speech for some people. I've been waiting for
I would
this.
listen to us.
I would.
First thing, get up, put my new Christmas jumper on.
Yeah, get your new headphones on.
Yeah, and crank us up. In our Christmas special. I don't know how special it's going to be. It's going to be special in many different ways.
It's Christmas Day today, so that's
Merry
special.
Christmas, Mark.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you. Do you want to open your present now?
We've kind of screwed up here.
Why? Have you bought me a present?
Yeah.
I've bought yours, but it's impossible to unwrap. How clever is that?
Huh?
Huh?
Is it
Shaggy?
So is that the idea of it, or is it just kind of a byproduct of bad wrapping or
No.
good wrapping?
The nature of the present is it isn't a tangible.
It's not your love, is it? It's not your love and respect.
Not
you
close.
shouldn't have. I mean, really, you shouldn't have.
It's a pile of passing indifference.
I was going to say, I'd be a bit worried if it was anything else. How are you on this fine Christmas day?
I'm just delighted that it snowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't expecting that.
No.
You put a few bob on it, so you're in, right?
No, I didn't.
So the eggnog's on you.
You said earlier there was some stuff you were going to throw. Is that now? We didn't do that last one, did we?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff I threw in the last one.
Well, let's just start this off with...
No, I do have some bookmarks from the last episode.
Okay. I've got one roof story. It's not chimneys, but it's roof.
There you go.
It's moderately amusing.
This is the thing I wanted to pick up.
Yeah.
You said to me in the week, because I dropped in 2 podcasts ago when you were talking about your interview at Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the things that you were good at.
Yeah.
Was it kind of, I can't remember, and it was spitting, graffiti. And I was listening to it in the car and I thought, oh, you told me that thing about graffiti this week. And you said, I used to do graffiti.
Yeah.
But then I used to sign it with my name. And I went, what, like a tag? And you went, no, actually my name.
No. I didn't. My graffiti. Well, when I say I did, I was the guy basically who would be lookout because my edgy friend, who actually gets mentioned in the book, was the one.
Did you go, I'm not the creative one. I can't get the paints out.
I'm not successful now. I wouldn't be able to spell. I did the script and then he did the creative bit. His name was Phil. I was just about to say my surname is this and his is this. It's probably not a good idea. Anyway, our surnames rhymed.
I think I've given away your surname.
Okay.
I think you're far from trouble now. I don't think the feds are after you, are they?
What, for that graffiti?
Yeah. Is it still there?
No.
All right.
No.
Do you literally sign it first name, second name?
He signed it his first name and my second name.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, I can remember it was in blue spray paint and we did it on a garage door and it was like,
right.
It wasn't
What was your style?
Creative.
What was it? Did you have a message? Were you trying to change the world? What were you trying to do?
R Phil and RLs.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like that kind of graffiti.
No,
it's just it's the stuff you get on the side of train walls, isn't it? It's like, come on, if you're gonna risk getting caught, you might as well do something artistic. So do something creative.
Mm.
Might as well say something. It's your chance. It's your platform.
Yeah,
for the
it's
world.
your canvas, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
is.
I'm not proud of it. I'm not going, ooh, look at me.
No,
edgy.
it's just funny the way you just kind of put your name, literally put your
But
name on it.
you comparing me to Banksy probably that doesn't ring quite as true.
Yeah. Okay, so you made a reference in the last podcast about, and you said it in training the other day. So why is it that we eat turkey every year?
Oh, I said it out loud before, had I? Okay,
I think my bullet point is dry bird.
Yeah.
I was watching the Royal Family last night, the Christmas one from, I think it was the Millennium one. So it's 20 years ago, which is crazy. And the mum asks everyone, "What do you think of the turkey?" They're like, "Oh no, I didn't really like it." It went around everyone. "Oh, not really bad, bad," you know. That kind of thing. And then they go, "Well, I might not do turkey next year." And they're like, "What? You can't do that! Don't bloody cancel Christmas bar for it." I was like, "Oh, it's genius." And it was exactly that. It's like, why do we eat? Yeah.
That's why everyone always does. Oh, we'll have a beef and a ham as well. Just because
it's got
to
taste.
smother the But same could be said for Christmas pud and mince pies. I mean, they're okay, but you're not going to have them.
No,
they're not going to be a staple.
No,
like say a donut. You're not going to have a mince pie.
But it's that thing, why wouldn't you just eat the things you enjoy eating?
Yeah.
Which, even though you had them last week. So, 2 podcasts ago, we mentioned God, didn't we? And you said God created the world. And I went, allegedly.
Yeah.
We talked about the baby Jesus. Not the baby Jesus, even the grown-up Jesus.
The little baby Jesus, like the little Lorraine Kelly.
Yeah. And you said you looked up how old Jesus was.
Yeah.
And I think the
33 consensus.
Yeah, I think that is about 33. Yeah. They've kind of worked it out. The reason we have Christmas is because there was a little baby born all those years ago.
Yeah.
He turned out to be a bit of a dude, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And I think where I come from on this is
the Midlands.
The Midlands consensus is I don't think I've ever believed in the little baby Jesus. Because you realise think back at school and you just told all these things as if they're gospel.
Yeah.
According to the
Mark.
teachers. Yeah.
And the other 3.
It's very confusing, isn't it? You look back as a child, there's the Santa lie, there's the religious story. And then obviously kind of Christmas now is a mixture of paganism, Christianity,
consumerism,
Amazonism, and everything else.
Argosism.
Yeah. And I thought, actually, if we didn't have Christmas in the form we had, do you think as a society, as a world, culture, whatever, we'd find something to celebrate at least once a year in a big way? I'd argue that we probably would find something.
The reason I was you could see my eyes working then was...
Do you believe in the little baby Jesus?
No.
Right. Do you believe there was a chap called Jesus who had some pretty radical ideas for the time? Okay. Do you think the story is completely made up?
Yeah.
Okay. Completely. No, not even based on,
Well,
the biggest Chinese whisper.
Well, there's some element that at some time 2,000 years ago, there was a guy in some country who did some things, but and this is coming from
that's kind of what I'm saying. It's kind of there's no smoke without fire. There was not a lot of writing. There's definitely no Instagram. Was there?
No.
Twitter? No, that wasn't around. People wrote stories and documented things. The word would get around, wouldn't it? If you had some ideas that were so progressive, so out there, people are going to hear it. It's going to go from town to town, isn't it? You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you why I'm struggling. I'm struggling because in my mid-teens, I became, for about a year, 18 months, became very religious.
Oh, did you?
And on my own back, decided to get confirmed. And I wore a crucifix and believed. I spent 3 days with some Franciscan monks in Dorset. A silent order. That was tough. And yet, why I find this difficult is, and I don't want to be disrespectful, I feel that I've mentioned the 12-step program before. One of the things I like,
yes, you have, yeah.
God is mentioned in the 12-step program, but we mentioned this the other day. It's Dave Allen. It's your God. It isn't God per se. It isn't Jesus's. It's whatever God or whatever greater power. I think greater power is one of the phrases that's
so it's not necessarily a creator. It's is a higher being.
Yes, and it doesn't matter whether years and years ago was reading after going to the north of Thailand. There's some tribes there that believe in animism, which is basically the sort of God is the natural surroundings. So it's the trees, it's where they live, it's the mountains, it's the rivers. That's their sort of what they worship, if you like. And I found that quite interesting because it was something tangible and you could see the power of it. What I think I want to be clear about is that I think I would love to have a faith. I strive to have a faith and a belief and something that I could turn to provide succor. So
to provide
SUCCOUR.
Okay.
I'm going to look it up because I'm not sure what it means.
You said it with such conviction.
Is it a new word?
I feel it's comfort, solace. I don't know. That's what I'm feeling.
Assistance and support in times of hardship and distress. Give assistance or aid to.
Roger Rabbit. Yep.
I would love to have a faith. I would love to have a belief system that gave me a framework to relate to turn to believe in.
Okay.
And I don't. And I think one day I will. I think one day I will come across something that rings my bells. My difficulty, I think, is that I would see the Bible as not much more different to Goldilocks and the Three Bears or Hansel and Gretel or J.K. Rowling. Because it's, to me, if you use the Bible as your handbook for Christianity, you can't either pick and choose the bits you like. But if you read the Old Testament, I mean, Noah lived to 740.
Okay.
If you read the Bible, not sure he did. I wasn't there, so I can't prove it. But I don't think he did live. It's something like that. Someone,
I think you're right about you don't just go, these bits are right. Oh,
yes.
we'll just forget about the stuff about homosexuality.
Yes.
Or some people don't.
Yes.
Or some people literally live their life like that.
Yes.
So I think you either take the whole thing.
Yeah.
Or you don't.
And if you take Adam and Eve strictly as the first two humans, then we're all just, so it must have been their son and daughter that then had children. Do you know what I mean? It isn't a comfortable...
It's a little bit unsavoury, isn't it?
So what I'm saying is I couldn't embrace the Bible as a handbook for Christianity. And some people will be going, you don't have to. You can believe in God, you don't have to believe in the Bible. Why I struggle is that what we're talking about now with Jesus is in that handbook. The New Testament says the things he did.
Yeah.
And some people could say, well, he didn't strictly turn water to wine
it's a metaphor.
Yes, it's a metaphor, but you can't pick and choose. And there is so much in there that I don't feel comfortable about that I wouldn't, if someone goes to me, well, explain this. To me, God didn't make the world in 7 days.
Yeah.
People might believe he did, people might not. Nobody's right or wrong because nobody actually totally knows.
Yeah.
But I think I can't nail my colours to the mast of something that I feel has elements that I don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah. I don't think anything can be scoffed at because,
No, I'm definitely
everything's
not
is kind of as no. Everything's is kind of as valid as everything else. Then you get onto kind of the higher power, and we talked in the creativity episode about allegedly God creating and being a creator. I was thinking about it today. He didn't just sit around and think about the idea of
he didn't wait till January the 1st.
He did start on a Monday, though, did he? Is that right?
Oh, yeah. That blows it out of the water.
We talked about it in training. I immediately went to the kind of the wonder of the universe, and when you start to look at the intricacies of the universe, and the coincidences, and the mind-blowing detail, and how does that plant know to do that?
Yes,
the symbiosis we talked about with the ants and the aphids. Just take that alone, mind-blowing. As disgusting as it is, it's still pretty epic. And I think yes, there's science there, but even some scientists can't quite comprehend the amount of coincidence and the amount of things that have come in together in order to provide the balance and the symbiosis that we have. And someone told me a while ago about the idea of, which I now know is called the junkyard tornado. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so someone kind of explained to me that they went to a science fair and there's this scientist talking about all the coincidences and how everything's lined up beautifully. I think we talked about it that there's that kind of almost ignorance about thinking that there's nothing else like this out there. Or
did we talked about this?
We did, yeah.
When I was saying about that there's no life on the moon.
That's right.
But we don't know what life looks like.
Exactly. Life in our own.
We're judging it by our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess our own experience.
Blinkered vision.
But there's this. Someone came back. I've just been to this talk, and this scientist was saying, some things we cannot explain in science, and we probably never will be able to explain. Yeah. And they've just not even scratched the surface of anything really. And they gave this example of it. It's so mind-boggling that how the Earth came together. It's like a tornado ripping through a scrapyard and creating a jumbo jet. And that always stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's known as the junkyard tornado, also known as Hoyle's fallacy. It's an argument used to deride the probability of abiogenesis. I need to click on that word, what that is. As comparable to the chance that a tornado sweeping through a junkyard might assemble a Boeing 747. It was originally used by Fred Hoyle, in which he applied statistical analysis to the origin of life. But similar observations predate Hoyle and have been found all the way back to Darwin's time, and indeed to Cicero in classical times.
So is this like chimpanzees with typewriters?
Could well be, yeah. While Hoyle himself was an atheist, the argument has since become a mainstay of creationist and intelligent design criticisms of evolution. So the argument is rejected by the vast majority of biologists from the modern evolutionary standpoint, while the odds of the sudden construction of a higher life forms are indeed improbably remote. Evolution proceeds in many smaller stages, each driven by natural selection rather than by chance, over a long period of time. The transition as a whole is plausible as each step improves survivability. The Boeing 747 was not designed in a single, unlikely burst of creativity, and modern life forms were not constructed in one single unlikely event, as the junkyard tornado persists.
Well, probably not. I mean, you've heard my theory about that we could all be part of a giant computer game.
Yeah.
I've told you that.
Yeah,
one.
and I just immediately think of the end of Men in Black.
And I use that analogy with ants. They're doing their stuff with the aphids, going like, there's no other life on this world.
Yeah.
Look what we're doing with aphids. How advanced are we? And then we're looking down on that. And again, it's a naivety to think that somehow we're top of the pile. Because if we are, it's a fucking small pile if we're the best.
Yeah, right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we haven't gone very far. And it was something you said that I've really thought about when we were saying about the growth of social media and technology. We're not growing. People aren't growing.
Oh, we're going backwards, aren't we? You know,
Well,
our brains aren't developing as they might. Probably. Oh, well, I don't know. Are they, or just in a different way?
Well, I've just found out this week, and this will come up when I talk about effective altruism. More stuff on vitamin D is that your vitamin D levels can be reduced by computer screens and TVs and gaming. I hadn't even realised that.
Right,
but
it's the film WALL-E, isn't it? Have you seen WALL-E?
Where's Wally?
You know, I need to lend you some movies. Are you a DVD person or are you a streamer?
Just a not really.
What?
I don't watch films very. I've watched loads of films back.
I think there's some movies I need to show you.
Yeah,
I'm going to sit there with you.
Just to make sure I see the whole lot.
Yeah,
and a
stay
burrito.
awake, old man.
I wonder if I get in half price now. I'm 60.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
Free
you
prescriptions.
Yeah, happy days. Right?
Looking forward to getting Hilla.
Yeah.
Noah was 950. If he can do it without statins, I can.
Right. And also, we also talked about in the very same vein of that, where we're mostly looking out, aren't we? That way, to the vastness of space, and we're sending probes out there, and we're learning more and more each time. I put that thing on Instagram about the microbe in the dirt, which looks like it's the smallest animal known to us currently. Yeah, which I think is an important thing to say. Which looks like a big mammothy thing, doesn't it? But you can't see it with your naked eye. It's tiny.
I'm sure a virus as well is that sort of intricacy, isn't it?
But it's also infinite. That way. I'm pointing is no good for podcasts, but and that's for me. That's where I start to get a little bit sick and kind of my brain starts to hurt.
So what you're saying is there's basically something so small we cannot see it that when it's magnified, you see the intricacies of it. Yeah. But then each part of that can then be magnified so each cell and each
and that is infinite.
Yes.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
As infinite as we think space is.
Yeah.
Go the other way, which is just, I can't quite, if you go far enough, is it like being in space?
Yeah, far enough.
Is the size of it comparable? If you were that small,
is
would it be like just floating around outside the space station with all that around you in a cell?
Yeah.
Mind blowing, right? Always remember, and we did RE, we used to do RE at school. I never forget, James McGregor sat there and went, Miss, if God exists, who created God? And she was just like, oh,
classic James.
James, get out. Every lesson you do this. And he just kept going, yeah, but who created God? And he was just on one, you know what I mean? He just wouldn't let it lie. And you're stuffed, aren't you? You can't answer that. Sorry, let's bring this back to Christmas because it's Christmas Day. Christmas bingo you've talked about. What are the things you're expecting in the week up to Christmas and in between Christmas and into New Year?
So I would go coming up to Christmas. It's like it's crept up on us.
That came up today.
Hasn't it
actually
gone quick this week?
God, it's
just
on us.
Yeah.
That's a great
So the
one.
next one, all set for Christmas. Just got last few minute things to do.
Just a few bits to do.
Yeah, like all the food, presents, cards.
Every
Anything, and of course, on Christmas bingo, it'll be a little bit different. What are you doing for Christmas? Just a quiet Christmas with the family. So it'll be a bit different this year. So that'll be.
Oh, it's a bubble Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Christmas bauble.
Well, we can't do what we normally would do, because can't see Granny. We'll be looking at Granny through the window.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to Zoom, but she's not very. We bought her an iPad, but yeah. And so, and so the whole COVID thing will be like, oh, we're into it. Are we allowed to? So there'll be all that.
Oh, it's all very confusing this year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a mad. Well, and Christmas cards are going to have things like hope for a peaceful and safe and better 2021. Everyone will be going, oh, we'll hope next. Couldn't be as bad as this year.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah. Because we went into 2020 thinking this is the one we're all gonna.
And it's a lovely ring, isn't it? 2020, 2020 vision, everything. So
what
that's
can go wrong?
Right.
Yeah. Because even people talking about COVID Christmas is becoming a thing. That's going to be hashtag, isn't it?
Yes.
Merry COVID Christmas, isn't it? That's going to be a thing.
Yeah. There'll be somebody will joke about going to a garage on Christmas Eve to get something, last minute presents. That'll be
that's always
that's always there.
The big debate around when people just open one Christmas present on Christmas Eve.
Oh, is that?
Because everyone has the family traditions, don't they? Now our family was you get up Christmas Day, you smash the presents, and then go and put all the clothes on that you've just been given.
Okay.
And then and get too hot and sit down for a massive. It's been the same forever.
Yeah. You only get clothes at Christmas.
Yeah, and some some people have that. yeah, that's pretty much what it was like. Hand me downs.
Yeah.
But some people just go, well, we, and they tell everyone, don't they? Oh, we just have our tradition. We have our open one, just one, keep it, Everyone just has to tell everyone these days what they're doing, don't they?
Yeah. One thing I do know is I'll be hard pressed to beat my mum excelling herself with Christmas presents.
Yeah.
I've mentioned my mum had a slightly miserly streak.
Yeah.
And was the original cottagecore by basically upcycling everything.
Right.
So the best mum present.
Yeah.
Unwrapped the present, could tell it was a book, but fair enough. Unwrapped the book, obviously very carefully, because she took the paper back with her.
To read. Yeah.
Fair enough, it's not a bad thing. Looked at the book and thought, doesn't spring to mind totally what it is, except on the spine it said Diary 1997. You could go.
When was this?
This was December 1997.
Right.
So first things first, Mum. I've only got
the pages are still usable.
I've only
got
6 days use of this.
Yeah,
but fair play.
Mm-hmm.
So my first thought was I can either Tipex the dates or whatever. Second thought was as I flicked through it, some pages have been removed.
Oh, right.
And it was something like, I can't remember. It was some photographic diary. It was like diary of, I don't know, vintage cars or something.
Mm-hmm.
And someone had obviously taken out the pictures of some of the vintage cars. So again, but like quite roughly, and I imagine my mum probably took them out to make them into Christmas cards or something. That's what I'm guessing. So my
heart's breaking.
number two, my diary that only had 6 days shelf life left wasn't complete. However, although it was incomplete in terms of pictures, it was complete in terms of entries. Because it was somebody else's diary.
I was going to say, was it for the diary entries?
Mostly shopping lists and things. I think she'd got it from a charity shop and someone had gone, there's some nice pictures in this.
And haven't. No.
So I got a used diary from the previous year.
Oh.
But I expressed delight.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
Was that the worst present you've ever had?
I think
it's pretty up there. I mean, I can't imagine anything been any worse, right? You'd rather not have something.
Yeah.
Is that the most memorable one?
There is probably quite a long list actually, but yeah, that was up there.
So did you enjoy Christmas?
Oh, Christmas!
Was ever an event?
Christmas at home was very. So 3 weeks before Christmas, the television was put in the loft. That was one of our traditions.
Whoa! Driven by your mum?
She just carried it.
So her decision then.
Yeah.
I'm taking this off you.
Yeah.
Why? Was this pre or post Quaker?
This was actually pre-Quaker.
Right.
Yeah. This was no TVs and Christmas don't go together. So the TV went, literally was carried up into the loft as a ceremony. And that's where the tree went, so we could watch the tree in place of the TV.
Right.
So that was one of the traditions.
Okay. Wow. So here's a nice Christmas-themed subject for this podcast.
Yes.
Effective altruism and self-actualization.
Catchy, eh?
Yeah, off the tongue, that one. I mean, to be fair, when I think about Christmas, I think about effective altruism and self-actualization. So, I mean, it's absolutely
It's on all my
spot on.
cards.
Yeah. And this is good because I don't really know what's coming here and I've not done any.
No, the closer we got, the closer I want to do this on Christmas Day. But I'm quite happy because I haven't briefed you or I haven't given you really any indication. I'm quite happy for you to be at your spiky best.
Rude.
Everything I say, I've decided I believe in on this one. It isn't just being contentious. And some of it is almost like...
I don't think you're contentious.
You don't think I am?
No.
I've just questioned whether Noah lived to 950.
Not contentious.
I can't prove he didn't. Anyway.
No one can prove he was, so
No.
have an opinion on it, right?
No offence. So...
Good.
Thanks. I now have to do a pause.
Yeah.
You're going to find one that I did earlier that you missed.
Do you know, what was that thing you were talking about?
Everyone in a Christmas bauble.
Say again, I missed that. Say again.
You were talking about Christmas bubbles, and I just quietly went, Christmas bauble.
Oh, no, I didn't hear that
No.
one. And you were talking about the, on your mindfulness course about listening. Was it mindful listening? What was it called again? Because you were sitting there going, I'm actually listening to everything you were saying. You had that whole session where you had to listen to someone for more than a minute. And
It was
not
mindful
interrupt them.
listening. Yeah, 3 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to do
Nightmare.
that for you,
Yeah.
to you, a lot more than I have been. So I think I've picked up a lot more of your jokes.
Okay.
Because I'm always thinking about the next thing we're talking about. So I'm trying to live in the moment.
Yeah. Rivet to now.
Frog impression.
Yeah. I'm going to come up with a few things. So this is a big shout out to Sam Harris and a guy.
Oh, he's back in favour, isn't
He's
he?
back in favour. I've forgiven. Forgive and forget.
I think he learned a lesson from that, didn't he?
I think we've all learned a
I have an
lesson.
opinion, but I mean,
If you're going to mess with me, Sam, get your facts
I mean,
right.
that's kind of, contention, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So this was a podcast, which we'll give a link to, with someone called Michael Sandel. And I think because of mindfulness and because of some thoughts that have been going through my head in terms of, I guess, in terms of mortality in some ways, not in terms of imminent death, but in terms of the idea of finishing your life and then looking back and having a sort of resume. One of the things that I think, if I look back, I would question is my behaviour around elements that have been caring. I've mentioned, things like, say, fostering has been something of caring and was altruistic, I suppose.
Yeah, massively. You've never mentioned that, but it's been a massive part of your life.
Yeah. I mean, it was, 25 years, I think.
Yeah.
So you could link that and go, there's some, that would be not the epitome of altruism, but it's high up there in terms of, not necessarily sacrifice, but doing stuff for other people, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So when I listened to this podcast, I think it resonated in a different way with me, because suddenly now when I was listening to it, I was thinking, I sort of get it in a way I didn't before.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to chuck out a few comments and a few lines.
We have touched on altruism, and I think I can't remember the money one we talked, because I think I raised the question about, can there be true altruism? It's a big subject in itself.
Yes.
And all we talk about is balance, drawing the lines, blurred lines.
Yes. And I think what's going to happen in the next few minutes is that my brief is going to be that altruism actually should be shouted from the rooftops and not seen as some sort of quiet, get on with it and don't announce it. There's a guy called Peter Singer. I'm not going to give a full detail. I've looked into him a bit. He's a philosopher. He did a TED talk. He's Australian, and he was given a professorship or a doctorate or whatever it was at Princeton, and there was massive protests by people with disabilities, actually, because some of his views around what a person is or how we look at animals in relation to how we look at humans, he comes up with what would be seen as really controversial views. So I don't want to go into Peter Singer at all. I'm mentioning him because of this particular analogy, which I think is really good.
Okay.
The analogy he gave, and we're going to be touching on self-made man in a minute, which is something I think that might just rattle your cage. So Peter Singer in his TED talk and in some of the other talks he's given gave this example. A successful businessman is walking through a park. He's in a designer suit, designer shoes, phone in his hand, and he's walking past a shallow pond that he's walked past many times in the park, and he sees a toddler in trouble in the pond. His first thought is, I hope that kid's all right. Just like looking across, is it just playing? Is it whatever? His second thought is, it's a 2-year-old child, must have some parents, there must be someone responsible, so looks round to see and realises that the child is in trouble and that there's no one caring for that child. And the way he says it, and he doesn't say this necessarily distinctly, but this is the sort of intonation of his brief, is he's then got sort of like a fork in the road. And one is, I jump in and I save the toddler from drowning.
Yeah.
But I'm probably going to ruin my shoes, ruin my suit, and I'll probably drop my phone. So there's a cost to me in being altruistic. There's a material cost because I can't jump into a pond without ruining the suit.
Yeah.
And then the other option is, it's not my problem. I walk on by. And so when he does the TED talk, he asks the question, how many of you would have saved the toddler? And it's like 96, 97% put their hands up. One or two people don't. And there might be other reasons for this, which I'm going to explain in a minute.
Right.
So his answer then is the vast majority of people would jump in the pond, save the toddler. Two things come of that. One is there's a degree of altruism because there is a cost to you, even if it's just a cost in terms of financial or time or whatever. And it might be minimal compared with saving a life, but there is a cost.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that's the sort of incident that's probably going to stay with you for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. When you're a grandchild, what did you do when you were in your 30s? Dad, I saved a child who was drowning in a pond. And they also go on to say about taking it a step further. If there's a burning house and you run into the burning house and you save a child, that's going to be, top 3 events of your life.
Life defining.
Yeah. If we're doing a podcast now and you come up, instead of telling me about used diaries, come up with your best ever. If I just saved a child from a burning house.
We'd have heard about that, right? Issue 1.
Hello and welcome. Well,
I'm a hero.
I don't want to beat my own drum. So the point around that is,
for me, because the definition of altruism obviously is disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others. I would argue cost doesn't come into it, because if cost does come into it, then it wouldn't be selfless, if that makes sense.
Okay, but let me explain.
So that's
if
where
you're looking upon that, the way you describe that is like a cost-benefit analysis. You're almost someone's going 2,000 quid suit or saving a baby, the baby wins.
Yeah, not necessarily, but I also understand there's a cost, there's an energy cost if you really wanted to go into it. Yeah. The act of doing so is going to cost you. So it could be financial, it could be energy.
Or you could slip over and hurt yourself.
Yeah.
The point about the cost will come out in a minute in terms of where...
putting your life at risk is a cost, isn't it?
Yeah, running into the burning house is one step.
That person might come out alive, you might end up drowning.
Yes.
Big cost.
Yes.
So I understand. I was just trying to work out.
Yeah, just going on that. So Singer is a utilitarian, and that's a school of philosophy that holds all actions should be evaluated based on their consequences.
Yeah, okay.
That you should do whatever maximizes overall utility or well-being. So it's doing stuff for the common good and for the overall good. And so Singer said this boils down to, would you save a life or not?
Yeah, okay.
What then happened in the discussion with Sam Harris is that they were saying, because the world has become such a small place, that pond doesn't have to be in your local park. That pond can be in Kenya, or it can be in the Ukraine, or it can be in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
Where does our responsibility lie in terms of saving a child in a pond, using that as a metaphor?
Mm.
So this is where it comes to the cost. If I said to you, there's a child drowning in a pond, you dive in, but you're going to leave your phone in your pocket, so it's going to cost you 1,000 quid to replace, and you're not covered with insurance, you would go, no worries, I'm saving the child.
Yeah.
So if I say to you now, if you gave me X amount of money, I can give it to this charity, and then I can show you a child's life you're saving in Kenya.
Yes.
Simple fact is, when it's put like that, the only reason that you could say the child in the pond is more, I don't even mean deserving, but is more likely to have your input is because of geography. You've seen a child dying in a pond, but you also know there's a child dying in a pond in Kenya.
But also geography in that you're not physically there.
Yes.
You're kind of posing that question based on me being there in that moment.
Yes.
It's easy to sit here, isn't it? Go, would you jump into the sea, a raging sea, to save a dog or a child?
Yes.
It's easy to sit here and do that, but we're not in the moment.
No.
Whereas the comparison is, would you part with £1,000 to help someone, and you just kind of put those side by side, but they're slightly different. One's a kind of proactive thing, one's a reactionary thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, I understand
So
that.
those are quite different, but I understand the kind of the premise of, okay, that's cost you a physical and a monetary amount.
Yes.
If you flip that and go proactively, would you put some of that money towards that to help? I see where you go, and they're not quite like
Okay.
for like kind
Well,
of scenarios.
they're not like for like, but in some respects they are. So let me give you another example. We're doing a podcast, and I said to you, after this one on effective altruism, a friend of mine from Kenya would like to be a guest.
Yeah.
And you welcome this person into your home.
Yeah.
And they sit in the chair opposite you and they say, thank you for having me as a guest. I'd like to tell you about something that's happening in my village.
Yeah.
My daughter has got this disease.
Yeah.
And if you gave me £1,000 now, I could fly back to Kenya and she would live.
Yeah.
And if you don't, she will die. I believe you would give, all things taken into account, you would give that person £1,000, or you and I would give them £500 each. I'm making an assumption. It's fine for you to disagree.
I'd feel very awkward.
Yes. What I'm saying is that when something is presented in a real life situation, when you have to make that decision, you're going to feel awkward. I'm not saying necessarily you give the money, but you're going to give it consideration.
Yeah.
But you know, factually, there's people dying in Africa today.
Yeah.
That if you and I gave £500 each or £1,000 each, those people wouldn't die.
Yeah.
And one of my things, going back to the Bible or going back to sort of olden times, is this whole thing about charity begins at home. And what I've realised when I was listening to this effective altruism is that my prejudices were coming forward.
Right.
So my prejudices were, I'd rather look after my own first, or there's plenty of people in this country that need help, or if I give it to those charities, it's all going to go on admin. Or if I give it to someone in Africa, the government's corrupt and they'll end up selling rice to their mates and it won't get to the person. So therefore, because of all those factors, I'll give some money to Wayne doing Movember and that will assuage my charitable donation.
Yeah.
The point that then went on is what this organisation's done, and we'll do the links because there's quite a few organisations involved in this. What this organisation has said is, if you are going to give money, it shouldn't just necessarily be to save a life per se, because your charitable intention might be around climate change, or it might be around saving animals. Yeah, it could be a whole number of things. So what they do is they look at the effectiveness of charities, so where you get the most bang for your buck, and this is where the effectiveness comes in, and this is where I'd link back to Wise Mind.
Yeah. And our creativity bit as well, with the effectiveness of...
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you have emotional and logic...
Yeah.
My emotions would go, that child in the pond is the most important thing in the world. I need to save that child. And so my wise mind would go, my logical mind would go, if you jump in that pond, you're probably not going to die. Yeah. And my emotional mind would go, you have to save that life. And I get to a wise mind. When I start considering other situations, logic either takes over emotions, or with people, for example, who give maybe to things like a donkey sanctuary, the emotional mind probably has a bigger play, because you'd probably be saying to yourselves, logically, what would I do most in the world? Making sure a donkey's looked after for the last 2 years, or saving a child dying of malaria? So you then have to go, well, I've got a personal preference. I want to support donkeys and it's my money. So that's fine. Yeah. There's no problem with that. But what I'm saying is, what this charity has done is said, if you want to save children dying, malaria nets are the most effective investment you can make. Yeah. And if you go to these charities, who are the most effective charities, you will save more lives for your £1,000 than if you give it to this charity. Sure. And the example they gave that really came back to me was, I think it was in America, they said guide dog for the blind is $40,000 for the dog, the training, the admin, the ongoing work, looking after the dog, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. For that money, you can save 40 people with sight threatened by severe glaucoma in the developing world. They can have an operation that will save their sight. So where do you go there? You can have one person who isn't going to get their sight back, but is going to have an aid, i.e. a guide dog. Yeah. Or you can have 40 people that you will never see and you don't know, and you can make them see again. Yeah. And this just opened up a whole range of questions for me And this is where, to me, effectiveness and altruism suddenly rang true, that there's this middle ground that I feel personally I have some responsibility for being able to make a decision that's informed, that will make a difference.
Yeah.
So this was the thing I was saying back to New Year resolutions. It's about learning. It's about a being better version of yourself. And this being better version of yourself is self-actualization, which is the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I said we'd be coming back to that.
Yeah. Well, that's the top of the triangle, but shouldn't be in a triangle as well?
Yes.
Is it the top? Is it the top one?
Yes. Yeah, so esteem is below.
Okay.
Self-esteem is below, the sort of loving yourself, but self-actualization is...
Okay. So what does self-actualization actually mean?
The simplest version for me of self-actualization is the best version of yourself, that you live up to your ideals. That's, to me, I mean, there's loads more, and you can read Maslow and see, I mean, have you got his little...
Yeah, this is from Maslow.
Yep.
1962.
Yep.
Also referred to as self-realization or self-cultivation.
Yes.
Can be described as the complete realization of one's potential as manifest in peak experiences which involve the full development of one's abilities and appreciation for life.
Yes, being the best you.
Yeah.
So one of the things why I was saying about that Maslow hadn't done the triangle of the pyramid in that format, although it fits that format.
Yeah.
If you look at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you've got the basic needs such as accommodation and food and shelter.
Yeah.
When we're talking about meditation and mindfulness, which is probably going up to the top under self-esteem and self-actualization, we're in a privileged position that we can go, I'm going to take 20 minutes out because we don't have to forage for food. We don't have to search for water.
Yeah.
We're not starving on the streets of Bangladesh. In terms of that situation, in terms of self-actualization, Sam Harris came up with this, and this isn't 100%. I like this saying. So he says, human beings tend not to be disturbed by the most harmful things we do. And how I read that is quite often the things that will get our attention, or, you know, will be someone getting beaten up on our, you know, a mile down the road, and it will be in the local press. But the most harmful things we do are polluting the rivers. And, for example, the situation with Muslims in China is getting passing interest on the news. I cannot believe why that isn't like the start of every... Forget COVID.
Yeah. Genocide.
Genocide, mass incarceration, mass forced labour.
Yeah.
And the whole world is
isn't.
going, oh, we're never going to let the Nazis happen again. And it's...
Yeah, I totally agree.
So that's the bit I mean about we're more disturbed about whether the vaccine has got a tracker from Bill Gates in than we are about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people being persecuted in plain sight.
Yep.
The next thing he said is we're not gratified by the most beneficial things we do, which I think is true. Our gratification quite often comes from social media. It comes from drugs. It isn't the most beneficial things. We don't feel necessarily, you don't always feel better from something that is good for you as opposed to something that's not good for you. And the final thing he said is we are not frightened by the most dangerous risks we run. And a great phrase came out of this is someone said, don't ever be frightened by the things that are in the newspapers, because what they report is the exceptions, not the rule. So we read about terrorist attacks. It's very unlikely.
Yes. We don't like they happen all the time.
Yeah. Every day we don't go, these are the latest suicide figures. These are the latest X, Y, and Z figures.
Yeah.
You're told about things that kill hardly anybody. But I've got people who are, you know, I've spoken to people who are worried who won't go to a certain country because of the risk of terrorism.
Yeah.
There's a website that lists how many terrorist incidents there are in the world. There's hardly anything on it. It's literally almost empty. There's civil wars, there's internal strife. But you and I, fingers crossed, touching wood, are unlikely to get killed by a terrorist. But newspapers don't report the things that we are most likely to get killed by.
We touched on it this week at training, didn't we? If there was, we almost did it, didn't we? Doing like a countdown of, you know, if we were concentrating on the death rates for other things.
Yes.
And every night we were told how many people committed suicide.
Yes.
We'd all have a very different view on it.
Yes. And we looked at that little pie chart, and road traffic deaths were the same as COVID in this particular...
Have we ever... I mean, I think even the only other time I can remember we've done something similar is Gulf War, Iraq. I don't remember I think in the news reports there was daily updates on casualties or army personnel being killed. That's the only other time, you don't get a running commentary of what's happening out there.
No.
We get told that 1 in 2 people are gonna have cancer. But imagine if we had daily reports, daily charts on the news of how many people have died from cancer today.
The world's a very, very tiny place. You can within the 24 hours you can fly to any part of the world now. You can go non-stop to Australia.
Yeah.
The point I think about taking altruism to its full extent, and this is what this guy was saying, is that if we start defining it by knowledge or geography or what feels sexy, then certain countries, certain diseases, certain causes are going to miss out the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
If we're in a position to influence people's lives for the better, now I've heard about effective altruism, and now I know these websites, and someone can go, if you do this, this will happen.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
that feels different to me than going, chuck some money in a pot and whatever. But the point I was going to make, this is going on to Cancer Research UK. So I put in, does obesity cause cancer? Because I'd seen a poster by them recently that had put it much higher than I'd thought.
Right.
Overweight and obesity is the second biggest preventable cause of cancer in the UK. More than 1 in 20 cancer cases are caused by excess weight. The risk is higher the more weight a person gains, the longer they are overweight for. And this goes back to that Insta story the other day when I was saying about smoking. Those 2 sentences say that if you put on loads of weight, you stand a much higher chance of dying from cancer.
Yeah.
That has to be, do you know what I mean? Then when the Martian comes down and says, well, how come obesity is rising then?
Yeah.
And you go, because we're putting more shit in our foods, and people are encouraged to buy more, and people are encouraged to spend more time in front of a screen.
Yeah.
And the education that comes out is minimal.
Yeah. And we're all off the hook this year.
Yes.
No naughty list, remember?
Yes. And so I think the point I'm making is, if it's about effective, if we were going to save lives in this country, which we're, this whole thing about COVID is about saving lives. That's the emphasis.
Yeah.
We could be doing more by I haven't heard one person talk about the links between obesity and COVID, which is total 100%. The same things that apply to cancer apply with COVID, but it isn't woke, it isn't politically correct, it isn't whatever, to go up and go, seriously, guys, you want to lessen your risk of dying, start losing weight. Yeah. No one has said that, but we've got Tesco going, there's no naughty list.
Going Philly boots.
Philly boots.
Yeah.
One little story. I think this is going to have a part 2 and part 3 because this is going to be too long. Yeah, so I'm going to give you one little story, which I love. I want to take it back to what I was saying about the wise mind. I've suddenly realised that giving money to charity generally, in my view, is an emotional response.
Yep.
So if I give money to charity, it's when Wayne sends through a WhatsApp and say, I'm growing blooming porn star moustache, give me some money. So I sent him £69 because I think that's funny.
Such a child.
Yeah. So the point I'm making is I gave it because it's a mate and it's for a cause that I agree with, but it was just an emotional decision. I didn't logically go, this is the best way to spend £69. It was purely based on someone going, I'm growing a moustache, give me some money.
Yep.
And so the point about the effectiveness of altruism is, if I think I would be able to invest money and save a child in a pond and have that gratification, and this is what Sam Harrison, this guy, was saying, is you should actually be out there celebrating it. Don't do it quietly. Don't do it anonymously. Go out and tell someone that by spending this £1,000, this is the life you're saving, or this is the 20 people that can now see because of your investment. Mm-hmm. If I tell you and make a big enough case and you go, actually, I was a bit cynical, but you've put all the facts before me and I'm going to spend £1,000, and you tell somebody at work and they do, you get the compound interest. Yes. If I had never told you, you might not have come to that conclusion.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So he was saying charity should be out there. Don't do anonymous donations. Tell people what you're doing them and tell them the reason you're doing it. And this is the one I love about effectiveness and about things being sexy. Something called Play Pump was invented in the early 2000s. And it was a facility to enable villages, I think it's mostly in Africa, to pump water into the village.
Yep.
Good idea.
Yep.
Makes sense. Probably would give a few quid to it. And the idea was, which is a fantastic idea, that they put in roundabouts in the villages for the children to play on.
Yeah.
And the motion of going around the roundabout pumped water to the
Nice one.
village.
Very good.
And a load of celebrities got behind it.
Yeah.
And they raised, I think, hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
And these roundabouts were put in villages throughout Africa.
Yeah.
The villages themselves weren't actually consulted. It was just like, we've got this brilliant new idea for you. And they were put in.
Yeah.
Two things in terms of effectiveness. Number one, pumping water isn't the major problem in African villages. It's the cleanliness of the water.
It's the quality of the water, yeah.
So having chlorine tablets that were added to the water that was pumped would save more lives and be of more use than purely getting the water from the ground. Second thing was, they worked out, on average, to get enough water up to serve the village, you would have to play on the roundabout 24 hours a day. So that was the second thing.
Right.
Thirdly, after they'd been put in, after a few weeks, the kids actually got a little bit bored. For the reason was that because you needed to actually be working, it wasn't a roundabout where you span round and round and then sat on it. You had to continually push it. So it wasn't a fun like in a playground.
Yeah, because there's no resistance on a normal roundabout, is there?
Yeah. So back in the day, we'd always have that one person that would do it. You'd all sit on it.
You'd spin it, and then you'd have to jump on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there'd always be one that would do it faster and better, and he'd jump on it and you'd spin round and round.
This is like the Wheel of Fortune. This has got a tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
It just slows up pretty quick.
Yeah. So because of the resistance in terms, because you actually were physically pumping water, it wasn't a fun thing. And as I say, millions of pounds were invested in that, and they're now dormant. And I looked on their website and they've gone, I think this year they've put in like 10. They're still going. Colgate Palmolive put some money in, probably because it just looks good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the point I'm making is that was something that appeared sexy and seemed like a great idea. When I read the first half of the article, I went, why didn't I think of that? It's absolutely genius.
Yeah.
It was like I went to a festival once and there was a DJ. You could request a record, but you had to cycle on a bike to power the decks, which was like, and even that got boring after, you know. So, yeah, that's the point I'm making. So I think there's a lot more that we could say on this.
I think there is, because I'm immediately going into the telling the people about it. That's good. But also you get the people. This is where the altruism often breaks down, where people are doing it to be seen to be doing it. And that the whole point of altruism goes out the window. You know what I mean? Oh, look at us. We're a big corporate. However, we do this and we give this to these people, and what, you know, regardless of whether it is effective or not. So I think if they can also be accountable or be held accountable, or if they are going to shout from the rooftops, go, we have looked at this.
Yeah.
Lots of people go, oh, look at me, I've donated, you know.
I think if there's the story behind the donation.
Yeah.
So Sam Harris called it virtuous greed. What he was saying is psychologically, he's getting a buzz. He's now joined this 10% of his income now goes into this fund that does the most effective charities. And he says he gets a buzz from it.
That's good.
But what he's also said is that although he's getting the most bang for his buck by doing malaria nets, he went, that isn't really what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick a few people that aren't the most effective use of my money because they live down the road from me.
For whatever reasons.
Yeah. And the point he made, and this is the final point I'd like to say, is he said, evidently in the Bay Area of San Francisco, there's a massive homelessness problem, really, really bad. And he was saying in a developed world, and this is my point, we haven't come that far. Mm-hmm. You know, we're in 2020 and there's, the richest country in the world has got dozens and dozens of hundreds of people living on the street. Yeah. And he said, how do I compare street homeless in San Francisco with street homeless in Bangladesh? I thought this was the most interesting thing. So this is my takeaway from this. Mm-hmm. The guy went, for $500, you could probably get a little shack for that guy in Bangladesh and probably feed him for a year for $500. You could take him off the streets because that would be an average wage or whatever. Yeah. He said for the guy in the Bay Area, it would be $50,000 because he would need mental health work. He would likely need drug and alcohol rehab. He would need real estate that's going to have a cost, even if it's a hostel, there's a rent. Yeah. You could look at it like this. The guy in San Francisco would be 50,000. The guy in Bangladesh would be 500. So the logical mind goes, there's only one option. Yeah. You know, I'll go for the 500 and I'll get someone off the street. The point he made, and this was so telling for me, that's measuring two people who are homeless. How do you measure the suffering that each of those people are undergoing? And he was saying being street homeless in Bangladesh might actually be easier than being street homeless with mental health problem, with self-harm, with abuse, of being stabbed. The fact that it's in America, which is a developed country, almost like magnifies your your disadvantage.
Yeah. Yes.
And the suffering and the pain and the mental torment that person had could be way beyond what the other person had. So this was the point they were saying. Yeah, most effective, that person gets off the streets. We can't then dismiss someone that's going to be more expensive because that person still has that right to have an intervention put towards them. Otherwise, all the money would go to Africa and Asia, and everyone in this country and America would, not benefit.
We've eaten our Christmas dinner. It's delicious, wasn't it?
Yeah. Bit dry.
Yeah. Why do we have turkey every year?
Yeah.
There's some leftover turkey.
Yeah.
Being a chef, what would you do with it?
Give it to the cat.
Okay, excellent advice.
Go on then, next.
You can say that last year. You didn't have a cat, did you? It's got a novelty now for you. Give all your leftovers to the cat.
Okay, next one.
You're feeling a little bit sluggish. Not everybody has a gym.
No.
Like you do at your house.
No.
You've eaten a little bit too much.
Do you want the answer?
Yeah.
Watch Only Fools and Horses Christmas special.
Ah, right.
Next.
It was just a pick up. I wasn't expecting that. It was just a follow up on the Now Year's resolution. Obviously, we just talked about the little things you're putting in place, not just your creative exploits.
Learning and being better.
But your altruistic exploits as well.
Yep.
Which is good. And that's to be continued, isn't it?
Yeah. I just feel really...
It feels like we're doing this. It feels like we've been doing this a year. Is that what we mean? It feels like this is a wrap up and a big
It does
thank you.
feel longer than it has been. I just feel really humbled by, and I don't mean this in a soppy, stupid way. I just think the fact that people listen to this, the fact that people give us, the fact that people get pleasure from this, I just think is a real privilege.
Yeah, we do know that, don't we?
There's evidence. Evidence suggests there's more evidence than this than there is on COVID. No, I just think it's that bit around. It is humbling. I enjoy every single minute of it. And I mean, it's that type of year when you just sort of, all the shows are going to be looking back. And I just think looking back at whatever it is, 34, 35 episodes, but I think I don't think maybe we thank people enough for listening, because you said something a little while ago. You said the two commodities we've got are time and attention. Yeah. And that rang true to me. And I'm thinking the fact that people, even if they do it because they enjoy it, they still are making that effort.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other stuff out there that they could be giving their time and attention to.
Well, I find it hard to say thank you.
You'll be accepting compliments soon, won't you? I'd just like to say thank you for Damien.
That's it for this episode. Well done for getting this far, and thanks for listening. There'll be quite a few links and references in our show notes. Please make sure you subscribe to us via your favourite podcasting app. And if you enjoy this pod, then please do tell a friend and spread the word for us. If you'd like to give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, that would be marvellous. And you can give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter at imfinecast. And you can send an email to us at imfinecast@gmail.com. So the next episode we have touched on death in the last two episodes, haven't we? I'm sure we have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Graveyards, gravestones.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So we're just going to go straight in, aren't we? We're going to look the Reaper right in the eyes and talk about death.
Yeah.
Just to really cheer everybody up.
The Brothers Grimm.
So on the death note, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.